inspiring you to set the marketplace ablaze in partnership with an awesome and limitless God. This is the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast, and this isn't business as usual. Here's your host and Chief Fire Igniter, Shay Vines.
Welcome back to the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. This is your host, Shay Vines, and our goal here is to inspire you to operate your business completely yielded and in partnership with our awesome and limitless God. My guest today is three-time returning guest, Gret Glyer, founder and CEO of DonorSee, which is a support network for the world's poorest. DonorSee's mission is to become the world's fastest growing charity platform to usher in a new age for global charity, raising the industry standards for transparency, immediacy, and innovation. And I absolutely love the work that they do, and I have been a supporter for years. Now, right now, DonorSee is going through a period of scaling and growth. It's an exciting time. And in my conversation with Gret today, we talk about the growth that he has personally experienced over these last few years that has really increased his capacity for leadership. Plus, we talk about the journey to really solidifying DonorSee's identity in the marketplace. I believe that if you have a big God-given vision for the work that you do in business, you will get a lot of goodness from this episode. So listen in and enjoy this conversation with Gret Glyer. Gret Glyer, what's up, man?
Not much. Good to be here. Thanks for having me. Absolutely.
I went to go look it up before we hopped on. And first of all, you and I met originally in 2016. So it's been about 5 years.
A long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you were on the podcast, January of 2017. Mm-hmm. Then we had you come back around summer of 2018 and share an update. And there had been a lot that had shifted in that amount of time. Yeah. But now here we are over 3 years later, sitting to have a conversation about your wild and crazy and amazing adventures with God in the world called DonorSee. Mm-hmm. So for those who missed all the other episodes, which we will link those in the show notes if you want to enjoy the adventure along the way.
I can't even imagine what I said in the. That was before I was married.
Yes, I
have a child now. I have another one on the way, and I have a whole staff with DonorSee. All of this was pre all of that.
Yes,
both of those episodes. So. Please link it, but listen with, any listeners can listen with generosity, because I cannot even imagine what I.
Well, that's the beauty of having
the
journey documented along the way. That's the beauty of all of this.
That's true. Right? It's true.
Okay. So when I think about DonorSee, and then I'll have you explain what it really is. But from my perspective, when I think about DonorSee, I really look at you as a bit of both an agitator and a disruptor as it relates to the world of charitable giving. Mm-hmm. And so I say the agitator part because it's like there's that kind of going against the grain aspect. Like you see something that's really agitating to you, that's in an industry, and there's something that you really want to do with it. And then from the disruptor perspective, looking at how something you can do can create industry change, disrupt a way things are being done. And so when I think about DonorSee, that's what I see as it relates to the industry, the world of global charitable giving. So that's Shay Vines' perspective. Now,
that's a good perspective. Yeah, I like that.
Good.
I like that. That's a perspective is a perspective. It's meant to be one angle that you share that to illuminate that kind of angle of it. And I think that's helpful. And I share a lot of that. So, effectively DonorSee, at the very base level, we're a charity platform where you get to give to real people in real time, and then you get a video update on how exactly your donation helped that person. So if you donate to a girl who needs hearing aids, you'll get a video of her hearing for the first time. If you donate to someone who needs a roof, you'll get to watch the roof, the construction of that house, and the roof go on that house. And most often the person who's receiving the benefit of your generosity is saying thank you into a camera all the way across the world. So they'll say, thank you, Shay. This would not be possible without your support. And then you get to have that connection with them. And we're really trying to build bridges and connection and relationship between people from all sorts of corners of the globe. It's a really cool experience. You get to actually it's cool to see how you're something that you do some afternoon on your way to work, in the evening while you're not sure what to spend your time on. You hop on DonorSee, you make a donation somewhere, and somewhere on the other side of the world, someone's day brightens up.
Yes.
And that's what we're about. And it is, I think what you say about being disruptive and agitating, it does do that in many ways. That's not the intention, but that is probably the effect, just because people are not, the current industry standard does not give donors a lot of feedback or updates on how exactly their money is actually helping people. Yes. And so we're looking to be kind of a front runner in how people get to experience the good that their generosity does.
Yeah, that's so good. And I love it. I've been on the donor side of this. So I have experienced the video feedback and all of that, which is very cool. So it's almost like you have the power of storytelling, the power of connection, and then that value of transparency kind of all meshed together to make a pretty beautiful thing. Now, okay, so you made a point earlier how when we had our first two conversations, you were single, and you were really in your early 20s, single at the time, no children.
I was 28, I think, or 27 when I was 26 when we first talked. Yeah,
26 when we first talked.
Yeah, when we first talked. Yeah.
All right. So and I remember that when you started, like really what was on your heart, even for yourself, was like, you did a lot of different stuff. It was just like,
so much,
I'm raising my own salary. We're not doing this under a charitable 501c3 model. Yep. And, you had kind of you were just kind of approaching it in a lot of different ways. Yeah. And when you came back later, you would share that there was just, as you were kind of growing in it, you were getting some refinement and some good feedback, and how you were trying to like work through the feedback of what really God's placed on your heart to do versus what's really sound. There's sound wisdom from the world. Yeah. And then there's sound wisdom it may be sound worldly wisdom, but it's also in alignment with what you should be doing. Right. Yeah. And then sometimes you have godly wisdom that's like, it's going contrary to what someone would recommend to you, but you just feel that strongly in your heart. And so with conviction, you move on. And you were kind of in the tension of that world.
It's so much tension.
Yes.
That is a good word to describe that phase of my journey. So that's absolutely right.
So can we start with, I'd say the end, but when I say the end, I mean your current, and then let's go backwards and talk about some of the journey between then and now. So give a picture of what are you experiencing right now?
Yeah. So right now we are going through a phase. We're going through a phase of scaling and growth, unlike anything we've really ever had before. So we're hiring full-time staff pretty regularly. I think we're going to hire 4 or 5 people over the next 3 months.
Oh, wow.
And that's going to not double our staff, but close to double our staff in that time. And then we're also just putting a lot of systems in place so that there's a lot of people who are, kind of, it'll be easy if I can kind of go back and forth between where it was, where it is now.
Yeah, go for it.
One of the ways that it used to be was kind of like I was a solopreneur, and I had a lot of contractors who were helping me out with various different tasks.
Right.
That's kind of where it was several years ago when it first started.
Yes.
Then less than 2 years ago, we hired our first full-time employee who was not just me. And I can't even describe the change that allowed for, because we had another person who, it's one thing to be a contractor and you've got several contracts and you're helping out with one thing. When someone has all of their work energy devoted single-mindedly to one thing, that really made a big difference. And so that was kind of like an inflection point. And then we started hiring more people. And then as we started growing, we had people want to get involved who come from a very professional background where they're used to scaling things like this. And so we've had a lot of interest in people just joining us in that capacity.
Right.
And so right now it feels like, it almost feels like we're right at the starting line. Isn't that funny to think of it that way? Even though we had this conversation, it was like it took 5 years just to get to this place where we feel like we just are now seeing the starting line and we're taking off. So,
the way I look at that is, the Bible talks about how we go from one level of glory to another and how we go from faith to faith. It's almost like you get to the end of one level of glory and then you're at the beginning of the next. So it feels there's a lot of things that feel kind of the same because you're at the beginning stage of something, but it's built upon something that was really powerful.
That's exactly right. So I don't consider, even though it feels like we're just at this beginning phase, I don't think of that past time as a waste or anything like that. I think of it as kind of a necessary period where we were figuring out so much stuff about who we are, what we do, what makes us unique, what's our kind of what is our goal within this kind of like broader marketplace of charitable giving and so forth. And that stuff takes time. And a punk 26-year-old kid is not always in the best position to do that with like the diligence and maturity that's required for some of these like really big transformational things to happen. So that stuff takes time. And then I also got married on top of that. So that also is a time consuming, getting married and having one kid and having another on the way. That's also a time consuming activity.
Yes, absolutely. And by the way, congratulations on the one on the way. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Due in January, little boy.
Oh, sweet. I love it. All right. So I'm curious to know what have been some of your most significant challenges. Like I'm talking about not necessarily the external stuff, but like the internal challenges that you've had to face that God's had to work some stuff out in you and through you so that you could be who you needed to be for that next thing.
Yeah. I was thinking about this because I knew, we'd be doing this interview today, and I've been thinking about, because one of the big things about this interview is that it's a continuation of this story that started a while ago. And you're one of the few people who I have had this like extended relationship with, and we've known each other for so long. And we've even, DM in between these, we talk more than just these interviews.
Yes.
So you've known me for a long time. So I think one of the, and hopefully you've seen me grow in that time.
I have seen you grow in that time, Gret.
So
one of your cheerleaders over here.
You are, I very much appreciate that. So one of the stories I was thinking of as I was kind of preparing for this talk, was when I was dating my wife, Heather. I had this weird relationship with money. So for your listeners who don't know, I spent 3 years living in Malawi, Africa. It's a small country in Southeastern Africa. The year I moved there, it was the poorest country on the planet. It's usually in the bottom five poorest countries. So I had this, by living in Malawi for so long, I had developed this really weird relationship with money where I saw, it was weird to have good friends who lived off of 20 cents a day, 30 cents a day. Like I knew these people really well, and I would hang out with them. I'd visit their house. I knew them. And then I would go back to America, Northern Virginia, one of the wealthiest zip codes in the country, and where the zip code itself was wealthy, right outside of Washington, D.C. And, my friends who are my age, they're spending money on one meal that, would be months of food for families back, in Malawi. And so there's this weird, I can't even describe how weird it was to have this dichotomy of these two different lives, and how strange it was for me to try and, it was really hard. It was really difficult for me to try and reconcile that this was like the same planet, but sharing the same planet, but these worlds like almost like don't even know about each other. And I would try and tell them, and it was difficult, and it was just really difficult. So I had this weird relationship with money where I developed this thing where it was almost like money itself was categorically bad. That's how I had like thought about it for so long. And so here's how that played out in real life. I remember while I was dating my wife, who really was there with me as I was sorting through some of these things from a personal level. My wife noticed that I started having like some back pain, and my back pain kind of got like worse and worse. And eventually, she realized I'd been wearing these running shoes, and running shoes you're supposed to wear for like 6 months, and then you get a new pair, but they're so expensive. So they're like $100+ $130, and like the way that my brain works is like $130 equals this many like months of food for people and families and stuff. So I didn't want to buy new running shoes, and I just been wearing the same running shoes for years, and it was making my back bad. Like I was having terrible back problems.
Wow.
And so my wife noticed this was happening, and she had kindly asked me to get new running shoes, and I just resisted so much. And back then, I remember, I mean, like I could tell you even more stories about like how resistant I was to like buying like clothes for myself and all this other stuff. But so I was like really resistant to buying shoes. One day, my wife and I kind of we're dating at the time, not even fiance, so we're just dating. She's my girlfriend at the time. She just kind of like basically tricks me and says like, I want to take you somewhere. And like, I think she wanted to take me out to like eat or something like that. And I was like, okay, let's go. And then she pulls up and we pull up in front of the running store. And this is embarrassing, but I have like a temper tantrum in the parking lot. I don't want to buy new running shoes. I was like so uncomfortable with the idea of like spending that money.
Wow.
I was like, I mean, it was not a temper tantrum, but it was a
lot of tension.
It was an intense emotional reaction to this.
Yes.
And anyways, I eventually broke and I went inside and I got the running, like I tried on new shoes. I got running shoes. My back got better. And I had, through that experience, my wife won that exchange, and it was
so did your back.
Yeah, I know. So I was like, who's the real winner here? Probably me. But through that exchange, it caused me to do a lot of personal self-reflection where I started thinking, like this relationship I have with money and the way I think about money is not complete. Like there are things about money that people should be very cautious of. Yeah. And that's fine. That's good. We should talk about that. But there's also like ways that it can be, you can think of it as like so unhealthy that you cause yourself to have, issues, or, you don't put yourself in the position where you can grow. Like, for the longest time, I didn't hire a full-time employee because they're so expensive. And so I was like, I'm not going to hire a full-time employee. And
you didn't even hire yourself.
Didn't even hire. Yeah. I wasn't paying myself a salary at the time. I went 4 years before I ever paid myself any kind of like salary. And that was like my board holding me down and like forcing me to like start paying myself a salary. So
you did that, and kicking and screaming too.
It was because Heather was pregnant with our first kid. They're like, it's time. Like this is the moment. Like so, so I had just like this weird relationship with money that I had to like mature in and think of and have a more nuanced opinion. And it's maturing, I think, is like a good word, because a lot of the thoughts I had were good kernels of conviction that have since become more well-rounded and I've grown in them. And now I have like a fuller picture of how I think about money. And I see, money is obviously not categorically bad because I'm constantly fundraising to provide money for people who really need it. So obviously there's something good about money that can then like do good things in the world. So obviously it's not categorically bad. That was an immature, incomplete way of thinking about money. But this conviction that kind of started from my time living in these two different worlds, it caused a lot of these really extreme reactions that then had to take time to mature. So that's kind of a good representation of where things have been and where they are now.
That is really good. And that piece, that aspect of development for you was critical.
Yeah.
For you to grow.
So critical.
In a charitable giving model.
Yeah, no, I would be in the same exact spot right now as I was several years ago if I had continued to resist what like the necessary growth there. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It was critical.
Yeah, so good. Now, once you embrace that and you're like, okay, I can have a healthier, more balanced, nuanced perspective on the finances and how that shows up in my personal life and business, all of these things. What would you say was one of the next things because I know, because that was a handful of years ago. So that means that there's something else. Yeah. There's always something. What was the next thing that comes to mind that was just like, oh, this was an important aspect of growth, or here's where God really stretched me?
Yeah, I think a lot of that had to do with how I've matured. And this is going to be a common story with anyone who has gone from being kind of like a solopreneur to having a team. Yes. There's this, and there's a necessary, I mean, when you're a solopreneur, you feel like you do literally have to do everything. You have to have control over everything. You have to manage everything. And when you start bringing teammates on, the temptation is to try and like control and manage them as much as like in the same way that you were just doing before. But before it was appropriate.
Yes.
Now it's not appropriate. Now it's actually counterproductive, because in order for them to like, it's not my job. Like if someone else is running like customer success or something like that, it's not my job to make the customer successful anymore. That is someone else's job. And if for me, I need to give them ownership, and I need the results of customer success to live or die with them. Because if it lives or dies with me, I'm trying to like channel too much energy through them. It's not appropriate. So that was probably and it was almost like, we talked about tension, the tension of being a solopreneur and trying to feel like you have to like control everything. That tension has had to be like, again, I actually think that that's appropriate. There's a certain phase where you really have to be like that if you want things to get to a place where they can grow.
Yes.
But then you need to like, it's like what got you there is not going to get you to the next phase. So once you get there, you actually have to like release the tension, empower other people. And that puts you in a position, again, that's like a critical piece to getting to a place where you can scale and you can grow.
Yeah, so good. I'm curious to know what you've been experiencing now, kind of going from the operational back end to just the goodness of how you show up in the marketplace and what you're experiencing. Mm-hmm. What has been, I don't know, maybe a surprise or something that's just been such a delight to you that you've experienced through the work that you're doing globally right now in charitable giving? Like what are some of the God story highlights for you?
I think the main thing that we get to see just time and time again is the amazing work that our partners are doing. So even a few years ago, we had a couple dozen partners, something like that. And now we have hundreds of partners. Someone asked me the other day, like, is this partner still on your platform? And I was like, we have hundreds at this point. So I don't know all of them that are on it, but, but I think seeing their work is very inspiring, because I used to be the guy who was in Malawi, kind of doing it myself on the ground. And now we partner with people all over the planet, and we're in, I think, 38 different countries at this moment.
Wow.
And there's we have over 100 nonprofits that are in these like various different countries, and they're on the ground doing like really amazing work. And we just see incredible things. And people who are, especially through COVID, understandably, a lot of people left where they were during COVID to come home or to go to a place that was safer. And there were people who stayed behind and didn't go home. And they even during a time as tumultuous as COVID, they stuck it out in those respective countries. And a lot of times it's because they were doctors or they were nurses, and they knew that they didn't feel like they could leave those people behind. And seeing the sacrifice that those people have is really inspiring. Yeah. And seeing the change that it directly has. I mean, here in this is like, it's so tough to convey to someone who hasn't seen it firsthand. But here in America, we have a lot of doctors and nurses, and I like down the street, I could go to like any number of specialists. In a lot of these countries, the doctor to person ratios are like really small. So if you have like one extra doctor, that's like a lot more people who can be seen that formerly couldn't be seen. And a lot of lives are impacted through that doctor's presence. And so, just seeing the inspiring work of our partners has been, I mean, that's kind of like that's why we do what we do. I mean, there's just all these amazing people in the world, and we want to, at DonorSee, we want to support them and bring awareness to their work and help people to be able to fund their work so that they can do more of it.
Yeah. So good. So what are you seeing in the future? What's the vision of things to come?
Yeah. So right now, we have so many things that we're working on, that we've been working on behind the scenes that are going to start coming up. Like people, it's almost like a lot of the stuff we've been working really hard, but it's almost like that stuff is not even people are not going to see it till like a quarter from now or 3 quarters from now. It's going to, but
behind the scenes underground stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But we're really focused on, so a couple cool things that are coming out. One, I was just in Malawi like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and while I was there, I was helping to film with one of our partners for a project that they're doing. So they're building the very first STEM high school in all of Malawi. So it's a school that's science, technology, engineering, mathematics First one in the entire country, one of the first on the entire continent of Africa.
Wow.
And so we're fundraising for that. In fact, I just got a message right before this that we just crossed $100,000 in funds raised. We need 450 total. And so that's one of the big things we're working on. So there's like a really nice video that's going to come out about that.
Nice.
That's one of the big things. So, and that's the type of projects like we love to be involved in, seeing not innovation not only happen in the charity space, but in these respective countries.
Yes.
I mean, a STEM school is like an amazing thing to be a part
Yes.
of. By the way, so if it's DonorSee.com/STEM, if anyone wants to go there, and anyone who donates gets their name on a plaque. That will hang up in the hallways of the school. So you'll get to be a part of this historic school if you do this. So that's one thing. We have a lot of good video content that's coming out. We've had, like I said, our team size is doubling. So you're just going to start seeing a lot more DonorSee. You're going to start seeing a lot more of our social content, a lot more of the amazing work our partners are doing, but they're going to be packaged in a way that we can like put them on social media and can spread around. And then I hope to be doing a lot more just awareness stuff like this. Like I really like coming on the podcast and talking to people like you and kind of getting the word out about what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because it's something, it's similar to probably how you feel with the transition you mentioned with Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur. It's like a really natural thing for me to be the one on the podcast talking about kind of the stuff we're doing and cheerleading for all of the amazing partners we have and advocating that people come and donate on DonorSee. I mean, it's a great platform. You get video update every time.
It is a great platform.
So,
I'll be hopping, by the way, I'll let you, I'm hopping back in as a partner, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Today,
Cool.
I'm hopping back in as a partner. I love what you guys, love what you guys are up to. So,
awesome. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
I think I'll start with DonorSee. First of all, STEM is right at the heart. I'm a computer science major.
Yeah.
Very actively involved in seeing, greater diversity in the space of STEM careers and stuff like that. So that's a heartbeat of mine. So I'll be specific there, but also general across the board. And that's going to be
awesome. Cool. And one thing I'll do, we have a really great video that was made that you can see at DonorSee.com/STEM, but sometime in the next week or so, we're going to get a brand new video that I'm actually in. Like we filmed something with me when I was in Malawi on the field where the STEM school is going to be built.
Yes.
And so when that's out, I'll forward you the video so you can see it. But it looks like it should be like a TV commercial. I mean, it's so good. So it's a really good thing to kind of share, and it'll inspire you. Even I've just what I've seen so far, I'm inspired and can't wait to be a part of it. So yeah.
I love that. So now, okay, so let me ask you one more question. I think it's only one more. What is so we've talked about some of these stretches and some of these development areas and stuff like that. And you've also talked about some of the things that you're excited about that are to come. What would you say is your right now in present time stretch growth for you right now that you have you're not on the other side of this one yet. You are walking through it right now.
Yeah, I think that there's plenty of that. There's so many things happening right now. All of the growth I've had up to this point. So we just crossed $3.5 million total raised on the platform on DonorSee. So the first million took us, the first million was probably sometime in the year 2018. The second.
And when did you start? When did DonorSee start? Was it 2016?
2016. Yeah. September 2016. So I think 2018, maybe beginning of 2019, we finally crossed the $1 million raised threshold.
Right.
I think 2020, we crossed 2 million. Okay. Earlier this year, we crossed 3 million. Probably before the end of the year, we'll cross 4 million.
I love it.
It's the compression of what's being raised is speeding up, but so is I say that because the compression of how I'm personally developing is kind of concurrent with that. Like there's a big correlation between those two things.
Yes, I could completely relate to that statement.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose, right? It actually would be interesting to talk to you in 3 years because I feel like there's so much that's going to happen. I could list 20 different things I'm working on. If I had to condense it into kind of like one big thing, I think I'm learning it's all in the realm of leadership and what it means to lead in a way where you're empowering other people and providing them with I see it as my job to make my staff as successful as possible. And that's my new job.
Yes.
And what it means to be a leader in that capacity is so different than what it was before, where it was like the solopreneur thing. So I'm not on the other side of that.
You're like, I'm in the process of that.
Yeah, that's where I am. I feel like I've grown quite a bit in the last 6 months. Like even in the last 6 months, I'm like, yeah, I really feel like I've started to learn some things. But we're going to double in staff size in these next 3 months, and then we'll probably double again over the next 12 to 18 months, if not more. And just because of some of those dynamics, I'm really trying to understand my role as someone who's supporting my staff and the work that they're doing, because it's really important.
Yeah, that's super good. I love it. I love it. Yeah. Is there anything that I didn't ask you about that you're like, this is burning on my heart to share? I really want to share this with the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur.
Yeah, I do have one thing that is super important for me to share. Shay, you've been extremely supportive of me, both like with these interviews, but also just offline. And so I just want to personally, it's very important that your listeners know that even like offline, you've been so supportive of me. You were a big part of of guiding me through the book that I wrote. And you've just been extremely supportive on so many different levels. You've spoken truth into my life many different times. And so it's very important to me that your listeners know that I've personally had that experience, and you're the real deal. And so I just want to make sure people know about that.
That's awesome. It has been an honor to do so. And I remember the very first time I had to do that, I'm like, this dude's going to be like, I don't know you. Why are you in my inbox with this? But listen, you got to follow the leading of the Lord. You're going to do it anyway. Yeah. It's too important. Yeah. It's just the work that you're doing is just, it's just really good. And I love the goodness of it. When you think about, kingdom impact and kingdom influence in various areas and stuff like that, I think what's kind of unique and awesome about what you get to do is that you get to play in both the worlds of both the innovation and even like there's some core kingdom principles about how you focus and innovate in the space of your industry. Yeah. And the actual on the ground work, the actual lives that are being changed all across the world through the donations coming through the vehicle that, of which you guys have created it. And so I think it's just awesome that you get to play in all of that.
Oh, it's a huge privilege to be a part of this. I'm learning a lot personally. It's great to I work with great people and then we get to support people just doing phenomenal, amazing stuff around the world. Yeah. Like unbelievable. So it's a privilege to be a part of this.
Absolutely. And then you mentioned your book. I was going to mention that. Shout out. What's the name of the book? And tell me what the book is about. Well, tell them. I know what the book is about. But tell them what the book is about.
The book is called If the Poor Were Next Door. And it's essentially my personal story about how I grew up as a private school kid in Northern Virginia and then moved to Malawi, and then how that experience of living in one of the poorest countries on the planet led me to start this new charity platform. And it's a short book. Almost everyone who tells me that they've read it, they almost all say I read it in one sitting, because it's not super long, but it keeps you going the way that the chapters are structured. So it's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's a founder story. Yeah, it's my founder story. So it's great. And then that's available Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Audible, and you can check it out. Yeah.
And then you guys go to DonorSee.com. That's DonorSee.com. And if you're specifically interested in the work that's being done in Malawi with the STEM program, the STEM school, go to DonorSee.com/STEM. Gret, right. It is always a pleasure spending time with you. And I'm just believing for just continued favor, acceleration, and the goodness on all the things that you're doing with your staff and with the partners all over the world. So bless the work that you're doing, and you and your family as well. Thanks for being with me.
Thank you, Shay. Thank you for having me.
I loved this update episode with Gret. I really enjoy having people come back and just having that opportunity to see how they're growing along the way. And so this was super fun. Mr. Bynes, our CEO. Yep. What's going on, sir?
I'm in the house. You know it.
Yep, you're in the house. You're in the house. All right.
Well, I'm in the office actually, but
okay,
it is what it is.
You're in the office and in the house. So, what are your takeaways from this conversation that we had today here with Gret?
Cool. So, my first takeaway from the conversation with Gret is we have to be careful to not allow our convictions to cause us to become unauthorized martyrs. And so what I mean by that is Brett was talking about in his early days, how he had this relationship with money, this weird relationship with money, and he refused to get new shoes, and it caused him to have back pains, and it took his girlfriend, or maybe she was a fiance by that time, to force him, to trick him to getting new shoes to help his back. And so it was that conviction about money that wasn't necessarily the best conviction that caused him to have back pain. And so it wasn't God's fault.
Did you call that being an unauthorized
martyr? Yes. God did not call you to be a martyr. There is a time that God may call you to be a martyr, but that wasn't one of those times.
Right. Oh, that's good. That's good. What else you got?
Point number 2 is, if you desire to grow, you have to learn to release the things that are not appropriate for to take into the next season. And so this comes from when Gret was talking about how he did all the things. He was kind of a micromanager of himself, right? Because he had to do all the things as a solopreneur. But at some point when he started to bring people on the team, he had to release that type of thing because it would not serve his people.
Right.
And so that's what I meant by that.
It's good.
Yeah. Let's see. Number 3, what do I have here? The fruit of being faithful with the work God has given you is that he will reward you with faithful people. Right. And so that point kind of plugs back into the point number 2, where like when you receive these faithful people, they've been given to you to help you do the work that you've already been doing. And so then our responsibility turns from doing the work ourselves to being faithful with raising up them to be leaders, to be able to handle the work that God has placed on their heart, the solutions that they're supposed to bring to the company.
That sounds like conversation we've been having in Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the beauty of growth and the beauty of operating in community and unity with others. There's so much strength found in people coming together on one accord, more than one, Yeah. Super good. All right. So those are some great takeaways. Mr. Bynes, anything else that's on your heart to chat about for today?
Should we remind them once again about the new masterclass that was released? Yeah.
Sure.
So you guys, if you haven't gone out and gotten a masterclass right away after you heard about it on the first episode you heard about that, the last podcast, you should do it now. Love, can you tell them where they find it?
Yes, you can go to kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com/masterclass. For those of you who have been around for a while and you've probably heard about Firestarter School over and over and over again over, hundreds of episodes. The masterclass is the new course that we've released. Firestarter School has been discontinued. And what we've done is we've really created a new course that I believe it takes some of the foundations that we absolutely shared in Firestarter School, but it also goes deeper. There's a lot of things that we have learned as we've walked this thing out over the past several years. There's more that God's revealed to us about what it looks like to walk this thing out as a kingdom-driven entrepreneur. And so that's what the masterclass is about. And it allowed that opportunity to take the foundations of what, we've learned over those first few years, along with the continued growth we've had over the last few years, and put that together in one course. So I really encourage you to get that. Frankly, even if you've already gone through Firestarter School, you'll still find value in the masterclass. So head over to kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com/masterclass.
Yeah. It even gives you a framework to overlay over the work that you're doing to help you make sure that you're aligned with being a kingdom-driven entrepreneur. So get the masterclass.
Get the masterclass.
This is not basic training anymore. This is next level training. Okay.
That's true. You used to call that basic training. You're like, no, this one's more than basic training.
Yeah, this one's more than basic training. This is mastery level training.
So you all, we hope that you will take advantage of that course. In the meantime, you all have a wonderful week, and we will look forward to talking to you more on the next episode of the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. Take care and God bless.
Thanks for joining us on the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, we encourage you to subscribe and spread the word. And don't forget, you can gain access to even more resources, plus a thriving community of fire starters by visiting our website at kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com.